Well, I woke up in the bed and I heard 4 tapping at the window right there. And I went over and looked at it, and I saw Bigfoot's face, and I was staring at it. It was looking at me, and I jumped up and I ran. And then when I came back earlier, it was gone. Well, it looked like a Bigfoot's face. It looked like a monkey out the window, like an ape. Wrinkles on its forehead. It had brown eyes. And his mouth was closed, and it was looking at me. Then I jumped up out of the bed, and I ran out, and I ran into the hallway. And then I went back earlier, and when I looked at the window, it was gone.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
In for night vision.
This is Dan.
And this is Laura.
We are from Berwyn, Illinois, and you're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. Gosh, it was probably 11 years ago. I remember watching this video on YouTube and this little boy talking about this creature that had come up to his window. And it was one of the very first videos I'd ever seen. And it's amazing now because Larry is the father of that child. And the boy's not a boy anymore. I think he's like in his 20s, but it's a fascinating account. And I've always kind of wondered about the backstory behind what happened. And tonight, Larry will go into it. This encounter happened in Kentucky it started in 2012. And it happened over a few months. Larry was taking care of his mother, who had Alzheimer's at the time. And a lot of weird stuff was going on. And I'm very happy to have Larry on the show tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Larry to the show. Larry, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you would, just kind of start from the very beginning. Tell me about this property and how all of this started.
Okay, the property is where I grew up, and it's in a rural area in Kentucky, and it's surrounded by woods, and there's houses, sporadically there, but it's a really wooded area, and we have a big security light in the backyard on the telephone pole that just lights up the backyard. Otherwise, it's pitch black, and very few cars at that time were traveling down the road, especially at night. But how this all started was I was friends with, I don't know if you've heard the show, there's a show that was on Animal Planet called Call of the Wild Man. So Banjo Neal was one of the co-stars on the show, and I went to high school with him, and I knew him as a friend. So I kind of worked on their show a little bit as a production assistant. So one time he asked me if I'd like to go to Marion County with some researchers. They were going to talk to one of the Kentucky Bigfoot researchers. His name was Charlie Raymond. And so I went down and I met him, and we went into the woods. Well, first we interviewed a guy down there that said he saw a Bigfoot. And he just thought, he knew I liked Bigfoot and stuff and things like that. So he just invited me. So I went. And then I went with him into the woods on my first Bigfoot hunt I've ever done in my life, just for fun up there where the guy had seen this creature. So they did some tree knocks and calls, and they taught me how to do a Bigfoot call. And they were real impressed with my call. They said it was one of the best they'd ever heard anybody do. Charlie and them did. So we left, and then I never thought any more about it. I just had fun that night. So my children came down to Mom's place, which they came often to eat and stuff, but this was their first time they ever stayed all night at Mom's. It was their first night they stayed the whole night. So that evening, I was up in the woods with them, and just for fun, this was a few days after, several days after I had went to Marion County. And so just for fun, I told my kids, I said, let's grab a stick and knock on a tree and try to call a Bigfoot. So I grabbed a big old wooden, rotten stick, like long log, and I started beating on a tree. And then I did my Bigfoot call real loud up in the woods on Thanksgiving night on 2012. And Thanksgiving evening, I mean. And I had never in my life seen anything around where I lived like that or anything, and until I did this call that evening. And we went in, and that's the first time that I had ever beat on a tree or done a call on that property in my life. We got no response at all. I was just doing it for fun. I didn't even know whether any Bigfoots existed, especially in Kentucky. I was just having fun with the researchers. I thought that was probably more something out in California, Washington area. And we had no response at all that evening. And what happened was that night, when they were at my mom's, my mom had Alzheimer's, so I was keeping her, and her memory was getting bad, so I had to stay with her, and that's why I was there at this time. And so that night, about 4:00 in the morning, I was sitting in the chair the same night we did the knocks. The kids were asleep back in the bedroom in the back of the house. My mom was asleep. So I was in the living room in a chair with a lamp on watching television. And so that night at around 4 a.m., I dozed off, and I just happened to wake up and maybe 15 feet from me or 20 feet is a skinny window in the kitchen, a real long, narrow, skinny window about as long, maybe 3 foot long or something, and a few inches high. And then we have a refrigerator next to it and the double glass doors in her house and some more big windows. There's a security light outside that lights up the backyard, and there was a pine tree outside that window a few feet away from the window. So I just happened to wake up and just turned my head a little bit toward that window, and I saw something run. And I thought somebody was standing behind the tree watching me. Maybe a robber or something was trying to break in or something at first. And then I seen this big, some kind of creature run across the yard in like 3 or 4 strides. It went across the whole backyard, and it passed a tree, a small tree under the security light that was out there, which I was able the next day to go out and measure a limb. I thought it was about 6 feet tall, or just maybe it was a man or something at first. And when I went out, that limb was like 7 feet high. So this thing had to be 7 feet high to pass by that limb. And I got a good look at it, and it looked like a linebacker or like a big, large wrestler. And it was covered in hair. And the head looked like a watermelon or a pumpkin or something was sitting on its, like it was that big, like with hair on it. I couldn't see any eyes or anything. And it had long looking arms hanging down, longer than a human's looked like. But it ran so fast, and it was so incredibly stealthful. And I mean, and I thought to myself, well, maybe some burglars are trying to break in here or something. But there's no I got a good look at it. Like everything kind of slowed down when I just woke up and I was looking out.